Thanks, Curtis. Okay, all right. Well, and not even too late. Thank you everyone for coming. I look like I'm in a dark cave here. Anyways, today we are going to be hearing from Cornerstone Title. And those of you that don't know, Cornerstone Title, and maybe I'll have Amy explain this exactly, but is actually linked to Better Homes and Gardens. We've got it, I'm not even sure how, so hopefully Amy will explain that. But so today we have Amy Meyer from Cornerstone Title, and I see someone else there. So go ahead, take it away, Amy. Introduce yourselves, and obviously I'm not quite as organized as usual. Introduce yourselves and tell us all about what you're going to go over today.
Hi guys. So yes, as Heather said, my name is Amy Myers. I'm with Cornerstone Title, and I'm here with one of our escrow officers, Lisa Witt. Lisa has a tremendous amount of knowledge. So if you ever have obviously regular deals, but any tricky deals, she is used to handling vineyards and big commercial projects and all of the scary things in between. So if you ever have any questions, reach out anytime. We're happy to help. Also, I'll be covering this a little bit more on one of my slides, but yeah, we are under the Anywhere umbrella. So it used to be called Realogy, and they've rebranded it to Anywhere, which don't ask me how I feel about that, but they've rebranded to Anywhere. And there are real estate companies and then Anywhere Integrated Services. And we are under that integrated services, and that's insurance, title insurance, lending. So we are under the same big happy umbrella as you guys. Something else to know about us is, yes, every title company has filed fees. We are about $600 to $800 less on an average sales price than other title companies. So if you do ever have buyers who are price sensitive, keep us in mind. But we will, did you have anything to say? Okay, so we will start out.
Tell us why is it that you guys are able to be a little bit less expensive for folks?
So everybody has filed rates. Our filed rates just happen to be less.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Same great service, same everything else, just
same great service. We all produce the title insurance policy and handle escrows all the same. You know, obviously totally respect, you know, existing relationships, because your relationship with your escrow team is very important. But, you know, if you don't have an escrow team, let us help you. But yeah, all the rates are the same. We all produce the same policies.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks. I'm going to mostly have my video off just because I'm actually on my phone hotspot. So that hopefully you'll make it so that the video is smooth for everyone. So thanks. Okay. Go for it.
Yeah. So do you want to do the Cornerstone Title slide first, or the Title 101? Do we want to go over farming or prelims first? What do you guys want?
What do you guys think? Anything? Anybody have an opinion?
Prelim.
Okay. We hear prelims.
Let's do prelims first.
All right, let me open that up. Okay, can you all see the slides now?
Yes, they're just not full screen, but I think.
There we go.
Yep, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, great.
Okay. So this is our Title 101 presentation. So next slide. These are some of the things that we're going to be covering. So what is title insurance? Why is it important? What's a preliminary title report? Why do we order prelims? And then when and how is the prelim produced, and what should be verified and checked on the prelim? So next slide. So as it says here, a title insurance is a policy of insurance that protects the insured against loss in the event that the condition of title is other than insured. So there are lots of things that can happen in properties that are even, I mean, you can.
So you, if you own a property in a subdivision, it's a pretty boilerplate transaction as far as there's probably not a normal insurance claim that would happen. It's when you get out into rural areas where possibly there's a legal description that's incorrect, or there might be a lot line adjustment that the description didn't get corrected properly. So those would be reasons that somebody would have a title insurance claim after the fact. Or we did have a transaction where another title company, instead of establishing a height restriction by doing a separate deed, they actually added on that restriction to the deed out of the seller to the new buyer and did it as an exhibit B.
On the grant deed.
On the grant deed, but the grant deed only said exhibit A on it. And therefore, when the next transaction was insured, it looked like it was a regular transfer deed. And the height restriction did not get picked up. We insured the transaction 2 times later. And again, that deed restriction was not picked up for the height. And we did have an insurance claim on that because of that height restriction not being picked up properly. But our legal counsel then went back to the title company who made the error, and somehow it was resolved through legal counsel that way. So those are the reasons why you get title insurance, because sometimes there are unforeseen things that come into play that we're not aware of, or you might not be aware of for your buyer or your seller, but that is our problem as the title company. You come back to us, we turn it into our upper management, and then they would process a claim if it's applicable.
Yeah. So just a good story to keep in mind. So the next slide. So why is this important? So with Lisa's story, I'm sure you understand why this is important. So that person who bought the piece of property might not have been able to use the property to the full enjoyment.
Right.
So that's why you get title insurance. That, and then claims possibly from other heirs. And also to make sure that there are no liens or judgments that are the prior owner's responsibilities. So once we record the deed of trust and do our escrow transaction, everything from the prior owner gets wiped out and the new owner's information is then put on the final title policy. So next slide. So what the heck is a preliminary title report? And there are a bunch of different names for it, a prelim, a commitment. They are all the same thing. This is, again, a report that is prepared before we issue the title insurance policy. And it shows all of the liens that are against that current owner and what needs to happen in order to give clear title to the next owner. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, something to remember. There is a difference between a preliminary title report and a property profile. The property profile is just going to show the deed of trust that's on there and then the current vesting. So keep that in mind. If you just need to kind of know the vesting and need to know like basic property information, pull a property profile. But if you need the whole kit and caboodle, and you have a listing agreement, order a preliminary title report. Okay, next slide. So why do we do these? This gives a prospective owner a look at the lien, what's on there, if there are any encumbrances that affect the parcel of land. And I'm trying to think of what else to say about
It
this.
shows any type of easements that are on the property. We do color-coded maps that show and locate all of the easements on each of the properties when you run a preliminary report through our company.
Oh, and something else, so we, from the title and escrow standpoint, we don't really look at easements or rights of way unless there's something that needs to be paid through escrow. You guys, as realtors, would need to know that to make sure that nothing affects the enjoyment of the property for your client. So we do go over the prelim whenever we have an order. We send out like, hey, you might want to look at this. We give you a heads up about what's on here that might be funky or not. But boundaries and easements, that just kind of is what it is, but always look at those. And on our prelims, you can click a hyperlink and it brings you up to that recorded document. So next slide.
And always click those hyperlinks. They're very important.
Yes, and something to remember, the hyperlinks do have an expiration date. So we suggest, clicking on them and then saving them to a folder and having your clients review them. It's a good cover your butt, insurance policy so that you can say, no, I sent you these are the easements and restrictions of the property. So we highly suggest doing that because re-clicking them, years later, it might not come up.
Amy, I have a question. Amy, yeah, I have a question. Some of the hyperlink documents are so old and they've been reproduced so often that you can find some that really are not legible. So if they're not legible, but they still carry all the validity of what was originally in the document, I mean, how does that get dealt with?
Well,
okay,
we can try
I was gonna give you some a sandwich at Oliver's. You guys could split that.
I'll take a sandwich from Oliver's.
Okay, I think I muted them.
So what we can do is if the hyperlink document is not coming out clearly, we can ask our customer service to see if we can get a better copy so that it can be darkened up, and sometimes we can manipulate those around. But some of the older documents, they are what they are, and we're only as good as the photocopy that is available to us from the Sonoma County Recorder's Office.
Okay.
And something to remember with prelims, some of them come out very fast and some of them take a while. So on your regular lot and block subdivision where there have been several transfers, those ones are usually like a day or two that we get the preliminary title report back. If it's country property and there's not been a transfer or a base file to go off of for decades and decades, that might take a little bit longer because the title department has to go back to those original documents and search all of that time to make sure that nothing has come up. So sometimes the searches are a little bit more advanced and take a little bit more time. So keep that in mind. We get the prelims out as fast as we can, but sometimes they do take a little bit of extra time.
Yeah, I've had that situation where a document was pretty much non-readable, and when you got a second copy, it was better. It was still really hard to read, but at least we got the gist of it. The client felt like, okay, they didn't see anything in there that was made it so they wouldn't want to buy the property. So that is worth doing. Definitely ask if if there's any part that you can't see, or even if there's things you can't understand, that you don't understand.
Yeah,
you guys are great answering questions. So
and sometimes, just so that on the preliminary reports, when they come out, why it's also important to look at the hyperlinks. Sometimes if there are private road agreements, those can sometimes be in the CCNRs. So if you do not click on those hyperlinks, you would not know that information. So that is another reason why you want to look at each and every one of those hyperlinks, because there could be other documents, or I'm sorry, not other documents, but other things that are included in the CCNRs for the property.
Yes. Okay, so next slide. So what should you be looking at on the prelim? So our primary interest is making sure that the owner is correct, that the taxes and liens are paid off, and that they're, you know, we can get the information on that. So that's what we look at. Something to remember about when you see a deed of trust on the prelim is from Title and Escrow, we don't have that full payoff information. So we send out an owner request letter. Sometimes, you know, the sellers would be like, that's a lot of information to be giving. And it's because we have to order the payoffs and have usually a borrower's authorization signed. So just keep that in mind. But things that you should be looking at in the prelim, the ownership, making sure that the names match up. Something that might show up on a prelim is like vesting subject to item number, blah, blah, blah. And in the prelim, it will, like if somebody went down on their own to add their, you know, granddaughter to title, if that wasn't done through a title company, we need to verify that the true intent to add the granddaughter was true and that that was what they wanted to do. In that case, we would do a
An uninsured deed
deed
affidavit.
So that's just to make sure that, yes, grandma did want to add her granddaughter and the granddaughter's not trying to, you know, pull a fast one. So sometimes vesting will say subject to item whatever on the prelim, and then in that section, it will call out what needs to be verified in order for us to issue that title policy and to verify ownership.
And that is something that we take care of handling and correcting.
Yes.
So that the insurance policy for the buyer, there is no holdup.
Yeah, and no wondering about
Exactly.
ownership. The other thing that we verify is taxes. We make sure that the supplemental and the regular taxes are paid.
And any defaults.
And any defaults. Right now, I'm sure everybody knows that that tax collector is very behind on issuing out supplementals. So if you've had somebody close in the last year or two, you're probably getting calls from them saying, why do I, you know, what is going on? I have supplemental taxes. But that's something on a prelim we check and verify and make sure that the bills are all paid. And then assessments, so any kind of like water rates, homeowners associations, mutual water agreements, making sure that those are all paid. Sometimes other counties have garbage assessments on there. So we do all of that ordering and getting the demands in and that sort of thing. And then liens and judgments. So child support liens, IRS liens, any kinds of like construction types of liens.
And if there is a substandard structure or one that was put up without permits, there would be an abatement against a property. So you also want to pay attention to that. And we would also be clearing up something like that off of a preliminary report, because most lenders don't want to take subject to abatements. Sometimes the county will allow the new buyer to basically take subject to that. They have to sign an agreement with the county and they have so many days to make that right. So every situation in every escrow is different. So please reach out to your escrow officer to help you with those situations if you don't know how to handle them.
Yeah.
Because that is something that we do automatically for you.
And some of these demands take time to come in. So I know that we in Sonoma County are a buyer paid county. And so ultimately the buyer of the property gets to direct the escrow. But sometimes if you know that, you know, your client has a bunch of IRS liens or that sort of thing, or if you know it's kind of a mess of a property, pre-opening an escrow and giving us time to order these demands and liens is great, because then if you get an offer that's a quick close, we're not having to, you know, wait and order the demands once the contract comes in. So keep that in mind. Okay,
Yeah,
so next slide.
I highly recommend ordering a prelim as one of the first things you do when you have a signed listing agreement. Because sometimes those things can take, I've had things that were, you know, took a few months to get cleared up.
Yes.
So you want to know that in advance. Yeah, so you're not holding up things. So it's a great idea.
Oh, we just had one.
And especially if it is a deceased person, because you need to, you know, it needs to be deciphered whether they need a full probate done, whether they can get by with a Hagstead court order from a judge. So every situation is different. And again, if you run that preliminary report up front, you know what you're up against. And once we see that report and we see that there is a deceased person in title, that's when we start doing the extra work to see, you know, whether a probate is required, and, you know, that you could get a couple different attorneys to give you information about that and see what your next step is.
Yeah.
Because those sometimes are time consuming.
Yeah. So moving on, we will look at a sample preliminary title report. So this is just a generic one. Like Lisa said, every single prelim is a little bit different. So that's what makes our job fun. I mean, I think that that's what I like a lot about this side of the business. It is exciting. Like, you're kind of an investigator. You're looking into the, like, what's going on, and we get to, you know, produce a clean prelim after, or a clean title policy afterwards. So I know it's probably kind of hard for you guys to see, but the top part is the plant date. That's not the date that it was opened. That's the date that this information is good from. So the plant date might be 2 weeks out or a month out. So, oh, it's, yeah, whenever they've run the public records. So that's what that date means. The other one will be your information, and who, you know, opened the order. Your reference number is going to be on there. This one's from Los Angeles, so that's kind of different. But then there's going to be the escrow number on there, the name of the title officer, and then the subject property address. So the next slide. So this is Schedule A. This shows the interest, the owner of record, and the legal description. So it's going to talk about the kind of interest that it's held, so a fee or fee and easement, leasehold, subleasehold. Usually it's a fee. And then it's going to show who holds title and how title is held. In this current vesting, these are trust. This is a trust document. So and then next page is going to be your Exhibit A. So this is the legal description of the property. So this is a lot and block legal description. The way you can tell if it's in a, you know, subdivision or not, if it's in a subdivision, it's going to say lot. If it's like country property, it's going to be usually filling up that entire page, and it will say something like a westerly point of, and then give degrees and all of the things calling out the size of the property, because those are not lot and block types of properties out there. They roll with the hills and the streams. So, and
it's the surveyors, you know, when they shoot the description, they do it by the degrees and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, more of a rural property.
Yeah. So that's Exhibit A, that's the legal description. And then Schedule B, next slide. Okay, perfect. This is where all of the exceptions, so taxes, assessments, encumbrances, liens, judgments, etc., that will be excluded from coverage are listed. So this is not anything that's on the title insurance policy. This is always going to be taxes, because there will always be taxes on your policy. And then let's see, so this example shows that they're paid, and we always call out paid or due. Something to remember is that even if it says due, between the time that we've issued the title insurance policy and the time that your client maybe sees the prelim, they may have paid it. So we can always go back in and pull a copy of it, and we can update our prelim if needed, but just keep that in mind. Okay, so then next slide. So always following taxes and assessments are the recorded exceptions to your title policy. So these are going to be any restrictions or rights of way or easements or liens or any of that kind of stuff. So water rights. So items 1 and 2 on this, I don't know if you can even read it, but items 1, 2, and 3 are disclosed by the recorded map. This item shows whose favor the easement is, and the purpose and location of what. Sometimes it will say like PG&E lien or easement, or, you know, water, something like that. So they're all different there. Item number 4 are the CC&Rs that affect the property. And again, you can click on those to pull up the full CC&R documents. Sometimes the CC&Rs are modified because times are different now, and we do not exclude people from living in certain neighborhoods. Thank goodness. So some of those CC&Rs are quite old and needed to be modified to keep up with the times. And then next slide. So this is going to show what a recorded deed of trust looks like on the prelim. So it shows the original amount of the note, and then the parties involved, and the recording date and instrument number. So something also to keep in mind is that amount on there is the original deed of trust amount. It's not reflective of any payments that they've made or anything like that. And when we do an estimated statement, sometimes we do have to go off of that original amount, because we don't know if it's an interest only type of a deed of trust or anything like that. So that could actually end up being, you know, more on an estimated statement. The next item, number 8, is a mechanic's lien against the property. So this is pool. They put in a claim. I guess they put in a pool and needed to be paid. Item number 9 is the federal tax lien. So this shows, you know, the Sellermans have a federal tax lien that is due. So we would go in and get their payoff amount for that. And it could be a different amount than what's on the preliminary title report. The next one is a pending court action. These people are in a lot of trouble. They've got a lot going on here. And most prelims are not this messy, but these sellers, I tell you. So these are just kind of what all of the different types of, you know,
Liens show as.
What they would look like on a preliminary title report.
And also, just to let you know, Cornerstone Title, if you have a buyer that has child support or has IRS liens, we do not run buyers' names at our title company.
So like
So what that means is that, just say I had a child support lien against me. Once I buy the property, those liens automatically attach to the property. But as a buyer, if you are short on money and you don't have money to pay that child support lien, sometimes that can come into play, that that is a positive thing, that it just attaches to the property after the fact, but that you do not have to pay for it up front. Some lenders, if it is on your credit report, they may require that they be paid.
Yeah, or
But-
if, say, you were buying you had an IRS lien, but you were on a payment plan.
Right.
And you were buying a house all cash, maybe you had a rich aunt or something. With us, we don't make you pay that tax lien off. You could just buy the home. So that's where we're a little bit different than other title companies. We look at the seller's information, not the buyers who are bringing on liens to the policy, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, so next slide. So then this shows, this is like our checklist. This is what we need to do to, clear up any issues. This is where it might say subject to item, whatever, if there's a weird vesting issue. It just calls out other little things that need to happen in order for us to issue clear title. So the next slide. This is what our statement of information and the owner's affidavit look like. This is what we might send out to your seller to have them fill out and return to us. Oh, and then also a trust cert if they're in a trust. We don't require the full trust if both parties are still alive. If one of the parties or both are deceased, we will need to see the full trust to make sure that we have the correct people signing. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, let me know, because I know this is a little bit fast. And then
Can I ask a quick question about that, Lisa? Is
Yeah.
there a time? Are there some trusts where certain parties do not have the authorization, I guess you would say, to sell real estate? I've had somebody ask.
Yes.
So what would be
And-
best practice if we know something's in a trust? Get that to you as soon as possible, or?
Yes, so what happens is most of the time, the way that trusts are written is, say Amy and I had a trust together, I passed away, Amy would then be the successor trustee. But if both Amy and I were both deceased, normally, most trusts are written that they become an irrevocable trust. In other words, it cannot be changed after both of us are deceased. A revocable trust can be changed during those trustees' life. So it's only under an irrevocable trust that you would not be able to sell the property.
Okay.
Or if a trust specifically says that this particular property cannot be sold.
Okay.
Also, something to remember, I know everybody's got the traveling bug now that we're allowed to go out into the world. If you're in a trust, the chance that you can sign in a trust with a power of attorney and have somebody else sign for you is very slim.
Yes.
It's like 1% chance. So if you know that your client is going to be out of town and they're going to assign their cousin to be power of attorney while they're off in grief, and they're in a trust, let us review that first.
Correct, because
Yeah.
we need to see if their trust allows for a power of attorney to be used or not.
Yeah. And then next slide is just our notes section. And then this is going to have our wiring instructions in it. So it's nothing really exciting. The next slide, you guys don't need to really worry about. It's the lender supplement report. So this shows if anything has been recorded in the last 24 months and what endorsements we will issue. So perfect. And then these are just included in every single title report. So it's just kind of the filler stuff that the attorneys make us do. So that's it for the prelim. It's a little bit fast, sorry.
Well, That's great. And can I share these slides with folks if they want to take a little
Yeah.
closer look at those, that prelim sample? Okay, great.
Totally. Yeah.
Great.
And if anybody ever wants like a one-on-one, because I know for me, I need to see it in my hand and be able to ask questions right there. If anybody wants any type of a one-on-one kind of a prelim training, we are always available. Love doing that kind of stuff. But really, at the end of the day, you guys don't have to know any of that. You just have to know who to call, and that's your title and escrow people. And we'll help you out.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so
Does anybody have any questions about the prelim before we go on to the cool tools that they have for us? I can't see everyone, so if you do, maybe use your reactions and raise your hand. It looks like I don't see anybody, so okay, go for it. And
Yeah.
I will open this up.
okay,
Give me a second. There we go. All right, you see that everybody see the pretty
perfect.
sun.
I
Thanks, Lisa.
was like, that kind of looks like Sonoma County, especially with all the rain we've had. So Lisa's heading out because she's got to go do a signing, but
Yeah,
I'm still
thanks so
here.
much, Lisa.
So, okay, so so we're Cornerstone Title. So next slide. So who am I? I have been doing this for 21 years. I've done 16 years on the escrow side and 5 years in sales. I know a lot of people in the business, so if you have questions or need a referral for anything, let me know. I love matching people up, and I love coming up with creative marketing ideas. So if you have anything that you need help with, let me know. And then next slide. So who is Cornerstone? We are unique, boutique, and national. So we are nationwide. We are named different in different areas of each state. So it might seem like we're a very small company, and yes, we only have one small office in Santa Rosa, but we are nationwide. And the reason our name might not be recognizable is because in every region, it's a different brand. So there's that. So next slide. And then, like I said before, we are part of the Anywhere brand of companies, just like you guys. So all of these brokerages are under the Anywhere brand. We are under the Anywhere Integrated Services part. So next slide. So these are some of the tools that we have. So we have Cornerstone Pro and Cornerstone on the Go. These are farming and property profile tools. Title Snap is where you can get real-time information on your files, like when the prelims come in, when we've gotten the deposit. So it sends out text messages and alerts you for those kinds of things. We have calculators to do buyer statements and seller statements. I did a seller statement on Saturday for a client because they needed that for their seller. We have all kinds of flyers and brochures. So if you need any of that kind of stuff for a listing presentation, you can take my information and make it your own. But if you need anything, let us know. And then we have online title ordering, but you know, that's not as exciting as calling us. So next slide. So we have two farming programs. So we have the Cornerstone 247 and Cornerstone on the Go. The 247 is the desktop platform. The on the Go is the mobile app. They both are under the same account and they both do very similar things. You can go in and pull farms with all kinds of information. There's also premium information that you can get, and that would be like demographics. You can choose people who do not have children in the home anymore, who maybe need to downsize, all different types of things. I did a quick farm just to see how many FHA loans were in Sonoma County, because FHA loans are assumable. And between January 1st of 2020 and June 30th of 2022, so that's kind of when those really, really low rates were happening for FHA, people, there were 657 FHA loans. So that would be a really good farm to do. Those ones, there is a charge for those, and that's 6 cents per lead. But it's kind of a minimal cost. That's not too crazy for some good information. And those are all single family properties. There are also 315 VA loans. Now, the VA loans are a little bit different because you can be a regular buyer, but that person who got that original VA loan wouldn't be able to use that VA loan benefit to get another loan until that loan was paid off. But if it's another VA, they can just assume at that rate. And I would think that they could probably get a higher price on their home because the rate is much lower. So something to consider. There's all different types of, things that we can farm for and create your database. So.
Does it say
Okay,
on there
so
that
then
when you get those premium leads that it includes phone numbers?
yes, it includes phone numbers. Now, something to remember is that the phone numbers are only as good on these as what they've filled out on their PCOR. So on when they've recorded a grant deed. So if they've changed phone numbers, that phone number might not be correct. But if they've bought in the last 2 years, it's a pretty high likelihood that that's a good phone number. So yeah, all of those include phone numbers. So yeah. So the next slide. So this is our other farming platform. This is newer to us and it's so cool. This is called Live Farm Pro. So this is really neat. It takes information that is out there and it compiles it so you can find likely movers, people who have had a death in the family. It shows hot zone maps. So a lot of times sales will cluster in different areas. So, when somebody sees what their neighbor got for a house, they might consider selling. There's these little hot zones that happen with sales. So what this program can find is hot zone map with potential hot zone maps. So likely movers, and it's really interesting. You can do a subscription or you can just get information a la carte. That would be emails and phone numbers are included on that. You can also take this program and there's a Facebook ad manager. So you can, market to a Facebook audience around like a listing or that sort of thing. So it's pretty neat. It's kind of fun. It's a newer one for us, but I love it. And it's interesting, the data that's out there. The next slide.
Is there a cost for that, or is it?
A lot of the information is free. It does not include like phone numbers and emails and that kind of stuff, but like I would say 90% of the information that you can get out there, get from the program is free. And
what's
then
the cost if you wanted the emails and phone?
I want to say you can get them a la carte or you could do the monthly fee. I think the monthly fee is like $25 or something like that. I can send you the pricing report or the price. There's like a whole little menu.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. These are just some ideas that we have. So door knocking is, I think, a great way to get out there. And if you have a listing, inviting the neighbors around that open house and just to do a neighbor's open house is a really good idea. There was some properties on tour a few weeks ago. There was one property that was listed, and then a couple weeks later, another property right next door was listed. What makes me think about or where my mind goes was, I wonder if that agent who had that original listing didn't go talk to the neighbors and say, hey, I've got a house that's coming up. Have you thought about selling? Or do you know anybody who wants to be your neighbor? always really good to just go, and it's a good, easy way to not, you have a reason to be knocking on their door. So I suggest that. I think it's kind of fun. I think that there are all kinds of fun things you could do, like passing out flower seeds and really getting to know your neighborhood. I love coming up with ideas for that. The next slide. So on our mobile app, the On the Go app, you can choose a neighborhood that you want to walk. You can put it in a walking order, and on your phone, you can go to each home. It will tell you the owner's name, if it's owner occupied or non-owner occupied, when they bought the home. And then there's a spot for you to put notes. And then you can say like interested, not interested, a lead, and then you can type in notes and then export your whole walking list to an Excel file. And then you can keep that in your database and to circle back around with. So and if anybody ever wants to go walking with me, I will show you how to work this because it's kind of interesting. And then these are just some farm ideas. So you can do a downsizing or a right sizing farm. So finding people with pools and 2 stories who have lived in a home for a long time. Maybe that's too much, or if they're on a big piece of property. You can do investor farms. So doing a 1031 exchange, finding investors who are in or out of state that have owned for over 27.5 years. After that 27.5 year mark, those owners don't get to write off the depreciation on their homes. So it makes sense for them to, or it might make sense for them to sell that long time owned property and maybe do a 1031 exchange into another property, either in this area, or maybe they could buy 2 properties in a, less expensive area. And then also mailing to out of state owners. I have some clients who live back east, but they really know this area. So I did a farm of people who own property here, but live back east, and they've been able to make some good connections there. And then mailing to renters, first time home buyers. There are tons of programs coming out right now. So teaming up with a good lender, and you could, go have these on the marketing and get some renters and get some people into homes. So the next slide, and then social media. Being like presence on social media is so important. So farming is much more than just sending out mailings and that sort of thing. It's being involved in your community, being a community expert. People are going to go to you if you know the ins and outs of their community. So make sure that you're on social media, give updates. If you're a newer agent, like show the properties that are on tour. Like there are always things to be doing. People want to know that you know the market. And the last page, this is my digital card. So if you need any flyers, if you need to contact me, you can take a photo of this and it will bring you up to my link page. There are buyer seller guides, all kinds of things on there. So, and then it kind of shows a little snapshot of our team. But yeah, I know we're probably getting up to time. So if anybody has questions, let me know and I'd love to help.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions? I know Amy's available if you want to set up some time to meet her at at your office. She'd be happy to come and sit down and do some of that predictive, looking for potential sellers, buyers in the title search. So definitely reach out to her with any of that. Anybody have any questions? No?
Thank you. That was helpful.
Good. Awesome. Oops, can't hear you now, Amy, but well, thank you, Amy, so much. Really appreciate all the info and your willingness to sit down. If you are wanting to, okay, how can I reach out to people? Amy would be great to just sit down. Like she said, she can help you identify potential buyers and sellers, and then can help you come up with some great ideas of best ways to reach out to them, right? We kind of get stuck in our rut.
Yeah.
So she's got some really great ideas. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Amy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and happy Friday, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.